Hello and welcome to Film Companion South. In this episode of Ask PR, we are going to be talking about Drishyam, directed by Jeetu Joseph. And stay tuned to our social media handles to know which three questions are winning the prizes from Fully Filmy, the coolest pop culture store in South India. And the first question comes from Anantu Krishnan, who asks, Jeetu Joseph did the impossible by creating a proper sequel, a movie that is set as a benchmark for thrillers in Malayalam. Can Drishyam 2 be considered as a benchmark on how to create a sequel thriller? Yeah, I don't know if you'd call it a sequel thriller, but I would say that this is one of the rare times that the sequel has an organic progression from the original. Now, when you're taking an action movie, making a sequel is no problem because, you know, James Bond has X set of adventures in one episode, and then the next movie he has another set of episodes, another set of countries. So that kind of movie is very easy to make sequels for. This kind of family drama where you kind of have distinct characters and a very like a peculiar way the movie unfolded in the first part, a very kind of a slow, kind of lulling first half followed by my god, like all this da 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 tension second half, to kind of create that same flavor but in a movie that works like a beautiful continuation of the own rather than just incorporating those elements to make a cash-in sequel. I think that's what's amazing about Drishyam 2. Vattachayalar Vandu Murugan asks, the ending of the first movie completely closed the George Kutti story and the ending of the second movie leaves it as a potential series. While I love both movies, do you think continuing the story of George Kutti makes more sense or should he be left to suffer in silence? When I saw the first movie, I thought it was complete closure. I mean, the body is in wherever it is. How can you take this any further? And they found a clever way to do that. I think continuing this as a series is like a great way to do something that's never been done in cinema before, which is to say that a crime, whether it is accidental or whether it is deliberate, will always keep following you. I mean, that's what we learn in class and school, right? In our moral science lessons, that crime means punishment. And of course, it doesn't happen in the real world where so many criminals walk away scot-free. But what I'm trying to say is this is a great way to kind of see each installment of Drishyam as a way to examine how this crime is following George Kutti and his family from, because he himself says, till the day we die, this is going to be with us. So potentially there are infinite sequels, and the only problem is going to be, and of course this is the major problem, how to keep, like, okay, this movie they got it going by having an eyewitness. How do you get the next movie going, and how do you get the movie after that going? I mean, because after a point it shouldn't start like looking like a gimmick, because you can't just keep bringing in a new IG every time and then open the case all over again, and you have to find different ways to see this man being haunted by his crime. And I think that means if they manage to crack that, I think you've got a fantastic series with not just like per movie it's entertaining, but as a whole it becomes this arc of how a man is always followed by his crime, however accidental the crime is. Saket Gopalakrishnan asks, what's your take regarding the worlds of Drishyam and Super Deluxe belonging to? In Super Deluxe, the characters are able to walk away from the crimes even if committed unintentionally without any remorse or guilt, where George Kutti and his family are serving the punishment through the huge amount of guilt, with George Kutti getting ready for him and his family's next encounter with the police almost for the rest of his lifetime, the last line of the film. There is the thing that Super Deluxe would remain as a standalone film. I'm not asking for a sequel, please. That's an interesting question, and I think I kind of answered that. The moral worlds are different, right? And I think maybe Jeetu Joseph is a more moral person than Tyagarajan Kumar Raja. I don't mean this as a, how do I put it? I don't mean this as a judgment at all, because what a person is in real life is not necessarily what they want to show or should show on screen. And I hate morality on screen in the sense that trying to show like people should be punished for their actions. That kind of thing is like, I mean, that's childish, right? You don't want to keep that happening on screen. But I think this is a wonderful way to show how different moral universes can be seen on screen. On the one hand, you have a Super Deluxe where people, Shilpa has done a horrible thing, the Vijay Sethupathi character has done a horrible thing, and she tried to kill herself but was saved by an accidental tsunami. I mean, like the universe decided to give her back to this world, whereas poor George Kutti, despite the fact that that boy had every reason to be murdered. I mean, I don't mean this in the cruel way that it sounds, but what I'm saying is he didn't pick up some random boy on the street and kill him. This guy was like doing some pervy things to his daughter, and that was and even the murder itself was done by somebody else, and in a fit of like a excited state. So for that to follow a man and his family throughout shows, wow, this is a totally different moral universe. There is not going to be a tsunami that's going to gift, you know, these people back to the world with the redemption factor, because in the end Vijay Sethupathi gets, the Shilpa character gets her son back, and here I don't see this happening at all, because you know they're going to be followed by this crime. So that's a great example of a movie to show how two different moral universes work in the cinema. SSN Maverick asks, do you think Papanasam will remake the sequel of Drishyam 2? Because as you said in your article and video that the Kamal's character is quite naive opposite to George Kutti. If he goes for a resumption, he will confess everything to the police. I didn't say the Kamal character is naive. I said he's more emotional. So when somebody does something and you know he's racked by guilt because of that, which is not to say that George Kutti is not racked by guilt, but he's also, to an extent, he believes the saying that man is selfish by nature, and therefore what we do sometimes we have to do thinking of ourselves, and we can't be thinking about others all the time. Whereas in the Kamal character says, I want to wash away my sins, the family's sins, because you know this is a very bad thing that we did. Now, it will be interesting to see if Kamal comes back, how that character would be treated, you know, because I don't think it will be possible to have Gautami in the movie. Maybe they'll make him a widower or something. There are some interesting things to be done with a combination and permutation of actors there. And I think it'll be interesting to see how, because Kamal himself is a screenwriter, and I think with Jeetu Joseph, they could kind of create something really interesting that kind of is based on this, and yet, you know, takes the peculiarities of the Siyambulingam character into account. So yeah, that would be a great thing to kind of do. But I don't know, Jeetu is doing it in Telugu with Venkatesh, and now if he does another one with Tamil, it just be like, I don't know how many times he can revisit the whole thing. But again, maybe the milieu of each place can lend itself to a peculiar adaptation. Pradeep N asks, how do you see the dichotomy between GK, George Kutti, who is suffering punishment outside trying to protect his family, while Jose is still suffering after going to jail trying to regain his family? Morally, both have sinned, and morally, both don't get salvation. So I think it's a parallel that you know, the person who identifies George Kutti as an eyewitness, he has a very similar arc. There's on his side as well, there is a crime that was accidentally committed, and except that man went to jail because he was caught by the police, whereas here this man didn't go to the police, and both of them are kind of like in a desperate situation to get back to their families, and they end up doing what they did. But I don't know why you say that the Jose doesn't get salvation, because from what I understand, he's gotten the money, and that money is going to help him get back to his wife, because like his mother, Jose's mother, says, once you show that you can take care of the family, I think everybody will be okay. So I think he gets back his life, because they don't show it to us, but I think he gets back his life. Whereas George Kutti is going to have to, we'll have to see what happens to him, because of course at the end of this movie, the case has been squashed and he kind of goes back, but he never is able to lift his head up again, because he's just committed a second major manipulation of events and prevented a whole lot of justice from happening. So, you know, the punishment is greater on his side. Mr. Professor asks, Drishyam 2 has set a benchmark in creating a sequel. Do you think D2 is the best ever sequel made in Indian cinema? If not, which is the one according to you? Oh my god, I'm not able to think of it. I mean, how many sequels do we have? Yeah, I definitely think so, because I don't think we are that sequel rich a country that we can reach back to the early days and say, that this worked or this didn't. We have franchise films, but I don't think we've had true sequels like these, which kind of expand the universe of a particular film. And I mean, right now I'm not able to recall. I'm sure that in the comment section somebody's going to say something. But yeah, something to think about. Pradyut Rao asks, do you think all the characters in the movie got the required closure, or was it just Mohanlal's character coming a full circle? I think in a way, they get closure because they have to accept that closure. Because the cop Murali Gopi and when the Murali Gopi and the judge have the conversation, he says, well, there is kind of, there are always unsolved cases, and we have to treat this like an unsolved case, because even though we know this guy did it, and even though we don't have the proof. So for them, it's a dead end. For Asha Sharath and her husband, it's a dead end, because they got the remains of the son to finish the rituals, but they know that even this time, they were not able to put George Kutti behind bars. Of course, the Siddiq character didn't want to put George Kutti behind bars. As for George Kutti, he got closure in the sense that at least this time he ended another, like in the first movie, here too he finished battling the forces against him. But is that closure? No, I don't think so, because for all of these people, the closure comes in the sense of the event itself. Like there's no further way to go beyond this. But I don't think there's emotional closure for anybody, because the mother and father of the boy are still going to be hurting. The police guy who could not solve the case, Murali Gopi, he's still going to be like, oh my God, I didn't crack this case. George Guti, of course, and his family are still going to be open-ended about, how are we going to live with this guilt all our lives. So the closure is in terms of the story, but not in terms of the characters at all. John Doe 297 says, do you think the body swap is too cinematic considering the standards set by the film? Well, I don't think so at all, because if somebody told you this by plot, then yeah, it sounds cinematic. But consider this: in the 6 years since that murder, this man has been on the lookout for a body that will match this body, because he knows that this could happen at some point, and he's put this elaborate camouflage of writing a novel, making a screenplay, doing this, doing that. So when the time actually comes, there is an element of luck definitely involved. But see, sometimes, there is that motivational poster or saying or something saying luck is what you make yourself, or something like that. I forget the exact nature of the quote, but like basically to say that don't keep believing in luck. You make your own luck. You make your own destiny. I think George Guti made his own destiny, because he befriended that forensics guy. He kind of befriended that the guy, the gravedigger. He said, I'm going to make this movie, and therefore he made the book. I mean, he created a set of circumstances that helped him. Now, if he's just sitting in his chair and saying luck will help me, then that looks artificial. But he has been actively working to create his own luck, to create his own destiny. And I think, therefore, it's not cinematic. Deep SSS 17 says, I felt the background score was a big letdown, just like TV serial template tunes. Let's not talk about the background score at all in these movies. Always, and I want to give it the benefit of the doubt, because it was done during the pandemic, and maybe they kind of, didn't have the time to do something better. But yeah, seriously, let's not talk about that. Shashank says, as you said, it's completely a writer's movie. The detailing and the characters involved in the movie had their own prominence, but what progress did the friend of Esther bring to the story, or is just being used to the establishment of the line that the police are still in the hunt for George Guti? That part is not written well. I don't know whether they wrote more scenes and cut, or they just decided that this was enough. But basically, the idea is to show that the police are coming at it from all angles. So through Sarita, the neighbor, the woman who's apparently suffering domestic abuse, they're getting at Rani. Through this boyfriend of this girl in boarding school, they're getting at her. So the point is that everybody is trying all ways to kind of get at this family. And so I think the boyfriend character is theoretically an important character. But because he appears in just 2 scenes or 3 scenes, you don't get a sense of what they've done. I mean, yes, the point is made that the police are trying in every possible way. But yeah, the character himself is not kind of integrated very well into the screenplay. Yeah. Vishwa Karthik asks, what are your thoughts about the writers, directors having the privilege of planting new characters like forensic security and even Joes to drive the story for the sake of sequel? Could that be the reason many find the twists or inorganic and see potential loopholes? But why is this such a problem? See, the thing is, we don't know all the characters who live in that town. We only know these people that we saw in the first film. So surely there are other characters who live in the town or in neighboring towns. I don't see why that's a huge problem in terms of developing the character, the story, or taking it forward. Supersonic Spinach asks, what was your favorite scene sequence in D2 and what aspect do you think could have been handled better? Like I said, I think some of the writing could have been handled better. Like we just mentioned, the boy, the friend of the girl in boarding school, the boyfriend, I don't think that was done very well. And I don't think even the way that Sleepover was extended into this universe, which is that I felt that should have had a little more of a dramatic impact when she she points and says, okay, something happened there, and Meena catches them, and that scene kind of deflates a bit. As to what is my favorite, I think the whole movie, because the despite these small flaws, the whole movie just takes on a life of its own, because you are with these characters from the beginning. And when you see the movie again, I saw it again, you notice even the initial conversation that Meena has with, that Rani has with George Guti, which is like, oh, this land was sold, something was happened, all that is planted right at the beginning. And, you kind of register, oh yeah, she's talking about the land that is actually bought by the Asha Sarath character, because she wants to keep 2 people there. So it links up, because at first I was thinking when I saw the movie, why they're bringing in the Asha Sarath character so late, right? I mean, why couldn't why couldn't they have brought her in earlier? Because first it's only Siddiq that goes and sees George Guti in his theatre. But now you see that she has been active right from the beginning, because what Meena is talking about is selling off that land they sold off some land for the to build a theatre as well as to fund the screenplay, and that is all Asha Sarath, because she's the one who bought the land. So all these little things fall into place so beautifully. This is really like astonishingly good writing, because see, we are used to movies where we are a country of like where there's a dearth of good writers, right? Because we always second guess the audience, and we'll say, oh, there's a lag, there's something, they won't sit through this, they won't do this, they won't do that, they won't sit through this, they need a song here, they need a fight here, they need a hero scene here. But this is something where Jeetu Joseph is saying, I'm sorry, this is my way of taking the story. If you want, get on board. If you don't want, don't get on board. There is no compromise at all from the universe of the first Drishyam. So if you liked the first one, you can maybe say, okay, maybe this one is better than that, or maybe I didn't like it as much as the first one. But I don't think anyone is actually saying this is completely unworthy sequel, because it is not. I think it's a beautifully made sequel and written sequel, and I think that's what's so amazing about this. The Mimicry Maran says, what is your take on the definitive arc for Mohanlal from the first one to the second one? Usually character arcs are visible in the same movie. Here we have the character arc traveling from one film to another. It's basically the fact that there you had an ordinary man. The arc was ordinary man but clever man becoming a kind of a conspiratorial genius, because he's doing all these things. Here, that is established right from the beginning. So here the arc is flat, because Mohanlal has already made the transformation from a generally happy-go-lucky innocent guy to this kind of criminal, for lack of a better word, this kind of person who thinks like or is forced to think like a criminal in order to protect his family. That arc has already been completed in the first movie. So there is no arc here at all. It is a flat movie. He starts the movie as a criminal and he ends the movie as somebody who thinks as a criminal. So I mean, though there are little things like he's become rich and therefore the townspeople envy him and all that. There are little changes that happen to him, but that's not really character arc as such. That is more like the fact that he is. Those are superficial transitions. The real core is that he is not the man that Rani married, which is why at the beginning of this movie itself he says, "You have changed so much." Yes, of course he did, because that event changed all of them, and especially George Guti. Kaushik Patli asks an interesting question. He says, the part 1 was made in 4 other languages. Now second part is available on OTT right away. How sensible it is to do remakes in other languages? This is a really interesting question, and I think this is part of this OTT conversation that we've been having over the past year. It's like, first of all, how many people have access to OTT? How many people have watched Drishyam 2? The potential audience. How many people watch movies with subtitles? That's also another thing. It's like, yes, people who are used to doing this will think nothing of putting on any language movie and watching subtitles. But you have to remember one thing. Most movie watchers watch movies in either English or Hindi, because I don't know, Amir Khan, whole country, whatever, something like that. And mostly their own language. So they don't really travel outside of the ambit of that unless they really have to, like something really special comes along. So, and I'm talking about the average moviegoer, and which is what most of the people are. So, I think there is value to be seen. So, I think the real success of, what we see here is how well does the Venkatesh remake of the Telugu remake do? We'll have to see, because is it going to do as well as the original, the first Drishyam that Venkatesh did in Telugu? Or is it going to do less in terms of, because, there is a sizable portion of the audience who's already consumed it on OTT. Because one thing that you have to remember is, this is not the kind of movie that readily makes you say, I want to watch it again, because you now know all the plot points. I mean, you're watching it for academic reasons. Like, I watched it again because I really wanted to see whether the writing held up, and it really did. But once you know the plot, for most people, they'll just go to something else to watch something else. So to invest the time and money to go to a theater to watch the same thing go all over again, I don't know if one audience has already exhausted itself saying, I've seen this with Mohanlal in Malayalam and I'm not going to see it on the big screen again. But then you never know. And I think this is the kind of thing that's going to show us what impact OTT is really going to do to theatrical releases. Nitish MI asks, probably amongst the very few sequels that actually had a strong reason for the story to be told. How do you think cinema these days are headed in terms of progressive storytelling? Do you think creating strong reasons for a story to be told should overpower the crazy desire to just make films? I think that always should have been the case. You should not really tell make a film unless you really have a solid story to say, or at least like when I mean story, I don't mean necessarily the story itself, but something like interesting and new that you want to say. But I think this is a form of like I think slowly what we'll see is people like, if not Jeetu Joseph himself, then somebody who thinks like that say, I had this fantastic idea and I'm going to do an 8-part series on this because I can really flesh out the George Goody character and somebody else in this, and kind of lead to that, because I would love to see Drishyam as an 8-part mini series. That would be like amazing, because it would like take care of, give us so many dimensions. Even Drishyam 2, there are so many things that they probably had to cut off. Like I would have loved to know a little more about Rani and her mother, because why the mother is being sent away to Qatar, because her support systems are being cut off, and she's even more alone because she can't talk to George Goody. He won't talk to her. So she was talking to her mother, but now mother is in Qatar. Like, it's not the physical distance itself, it's just the fact that of course she can call her mother, but there's a comfort knowing that somebody is right beside you. But that becomes a very abstract kind of thing that we learn, because the mother, there's no time to kind of really give the mother a bit of an arc. So I think these things would be great in terms of a progressive storytelling, or what you call it. I think these would be great in terms of a series. So that would be fantastic to see. So that's it for this episode of Ask BR. I mean, I guess, it was just so nice to watch this movie, because after a very long time, you got the sense of, a director who really knows his universe and his world and his characters, and is able to do that continuously across 2 films. And I think that's what's so special about this film, that the chromosomally speaking, the DNA of the first film is present in this film. It's not just some random thing, it's like it completely leads from there. And to kind of do that and yet maintain the thrills, and I'm telling you, by the time that the climax happened and I was looking at that stuff, like that copyright and all, my jaw just kept dropping, because it was like, oh my god, and then oh my god, and then oh my god. It was like, oh, it's not that body, now whose body is that? So as the character is getting shocked, I was getting shocked. And I think that is the true like mark of how a movie manipulates you. And I think, as much as we say, of course we all watch all kinds of films, but this is the primal pleasure of movie going, right? It's like, however much you may watch art films or whatever it is, the story, this principle of, or this notion of sitting around a campfire like cavemen and listening to a story as somebody authoritatively tells you a story, and then imagining everything. Of course now we don't have to imagine, because everything's in visuals. That's the feeling that a movie like Drishyam 2 gives. And really, it's a seriously amazing achievement. So I'm glad that it happened, and I hope you enjoyed this Ask BR. See you again in another episode of Ask BR, which I think is coming up sooner than this one did. Anyway, stay tuned to Film Companion South, and I will see you soon.